We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back with Liberty Nation senior political analyst and long-term host of this here radio show, Mr. Tim Donner. Now, earlier in the show, we were talking about Tim's theory, and it's a very good one, that Donald Trump this election season is better off doing what Joe Biden did in 2020, stay in the basement, let Joe Biden destroy himself through various appearances, if he makes any at all that are unscripted, and then just not remind people of Trump, not to remind people of his rather abrasive attitude. Now, we talked very, very briefly coming into the end of the last segment about how COVID played a part in that as well. It's very easy for Joe Biden to stay home saying, well, it's COVID. This is why we don't have big rallies. This is why I'm staying at home. But something very, very new that I noticed is that now the Biden administration is trying to say that the reason that there were more COVID deaths after Joe Biden took office. Now, remember, on the debate stage, Joe Biden said anybody who's responsible for that amount of deaths doesn't deserve to be president. And then, of course, he became president, and there were more deaths under his presidency.
There were twice as many under his presidency as under Trump.
And so what he credits with Trump, the problem, how he credits the problem to Trump, is that he said Trump didn't do the vaccine rollout right. Now, let's remember, COVID landed in U.S. shores late 2019. The vaccine program was called the Warp Speed?
Operation Warp Speed.
Yeah.
And people basically said at the beginning of that process that there was no way Trump couldn't
be done.
The goals. But I'll tell you what, a re-election campaign is a good incentive for a president to solve a problem like that. Yeah. And he did. This kind of revisionist history is not going to fly. First of all, COVID is not really an issue anymore. It certainly was in 2020. Now it is not an issue. And if he's going after that, it just shows how desperate he is because, look, I read leftist opinion and commentary all the time. And right now, after they said months of saying, well, Biden needs to go and sell the economy because it's actually doing so well, even though people don't realize it, that didn't work, Bidenomics. Then they tried to say that, well, inflation's coming down and things are getting better and we have wonderful unemployment numbers and growth rate and all of these things, which in ordinary circumstances, Mark, frankly, should work pretty well for an incumbent president. But I think people realize that these economic indicators have nothing to do with Joe Biden. Well, it's probably the residual effect from the Trump economy, but that's just a theory, and I'm not an economist. But they now have said the left has been reduced to saying that Biden has no other choice except to run a singular message in his campaign, which is that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, an authoritarian dictator in waiting, who even admitted he would be a dictator on day one, which was said in jest, but of course they took it seriously. There's no other issue. They've tried everything else. Nothing is working. They tried the CHIPS Act. They tried the Inflation Reduction Act. Look at all the legislation. That just doesn't translate to people who are paying ridiculous prices for groceries and gas and for their home heating bills. It just doesn't fly.
You mentioned you're not an economist, so I wouldn't go specifically into the job numbers. Andrew Moran was on this show quite recently, and I think why people have stopped touting the job numbers and things like this, and why they've moved to, as you say, the strategy of Trump's the danger to democracy, is because people have started peeling back the headline numbers. And yes, there are more jobs in the economy, but that's because individuals now have more jobs than one. And that's what's actually driving it, rather than new full-time ones. It's new extra jobs on top of people. So once people started stripping back the headline numbers, that whole narrative kind of crumbled.
People vote on how they feel. They don't vote so much with their
overworked and underpaid is how many people are feeling in America.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. When they can't get nearly as much. Costs 20% more now for a bag of groceries than it did when Joe Biden became president. That's something that people feel every single day. Inflation is something that, if it went up last month, if it goes up again, that issue's going to be front and center, and Joe Biden, if it's possible, will be even less popular than he is now.
Well, that would be something to see. Now, let's get back to your original thesis here that Joe Biden needs to get out and Donald Trump needs to stay at home. Now, there's actually Donald Trump is doing something quite similar to that with these phone-ins, which I think is quite fascinating. So what he's doing is he's phoning in to various events around the country, and he's given like a tailored message. They put him on the speaker, and and he's talking to a tailored message to that group. So he can actually appear at like 10 different rallies in a day, other people's rallies with the phone-ins.
And he can do that because he has the gravitas, the experience, and having been president. Let's put it this way: Dean Phillips couldn't get away with that.
Oh yeah,
right.
No chance.
Joe Biden really couldn't get away.
That's
with
what I wanted to
Donald
bring
Trump.
up. Joe Biden tried it, and it was like speaking to your elderly grandfather on like a FaceTime call, and is this working? Can you hear me?
Yes. How do I get this? Where's the button for
That's
the volume?
exactly what it was like. But this is the president. They've got a comms team to rival anything in the world, and yet they still couldn't get that right. And it was quite shocking. Now, one more subject I want to jump on to.
Look, I will say this as a final comment on that. You can put a bonnet on a warthog, but it's still a warthog.
Indeed it is. One quick subject I want to dive into. We've heard the Biden campaign is boasting about the amount of cash it has on hand, especially its January fundraising haul, compared to the GOP and Donald Trump. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that, because we've got only about a minute left, but is it not money that always wins elections?
If that was true, we'd be talking about the 8-year reign of Hillary Clinton, because she sure as heck raised, about twice as much as Donald Trump in 2016. I don't really think that fundraising is going to decide this election, because everybody knows the candidates. They're so well formed. They're so well established quantities in the opinion of the American people who've seen each of them for 4 years. I think that's really the sum total of it.
Tim Donner, thank you ever so much for joining us.
A lot of fun, Mark. Thanks.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.